Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from November 22nd to the 28th. So before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. Then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you're ready. But we're going to start with this big news from the Dales report, the moment we've all been waiting for, as U.S. cannabis big regulatory moment, safe banking NDAA union is within reach. Now, I started this channel really to cover two main events that I thought would happen, which would be the passing of safe banking and then the eventual federal legalization of cannabis. And no one thought the Dems would flip the Senate last year, but I did, covering that on my channel, and for that reason I thought it was possible we could see SAFE pass sooner than later in order to help the fastest growing industry in the US get cash off the streets and stop armed robberies. But no, the Dems haven't done anything because politics always gets in the way. So it's a lesson learned, but for that reason I've been buying shares all year in anticipation for this. And if this does not happen in the next few weeks, it's still going to happen at some point. So for traders and short-term minded investors out there, this industry is likely not for you. However, for long-term investors that have been buying these dips, we might be at the tipping point that we've been waiting for. So I just want to go through this. If you don't know what SAFE is, obviously if you're finding this channel now, you can read through more about this, but I've covered that all, so I'm not going to read through it. Decision on safe banking amendment close at hand. According to reports, the catalyzing decision on whether safe banking will be included in the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act is coming to head. Ameritalk recently reported that a Senate source has confirmed the Senate will reconvene to consider the NDAA on November 29th. More specifically, for the fate of safe banking, consideration of the NDAA will resume at 3 p.m. November 29th, with the deadline for filing first-degree amendments coming at 3:30 p.m. and the deadline for filing second-degree amendments coming an hour before the cloture vote. So this was the news that we had, and I reported this during the midweek update as well. Now we have a little bit more information on this. So a vote to invoke cloture on an amendment is scheduled to take place at 5:30 p.m. If invoked, a 30-hour countdown would ensue on the post-cloture debate. Now, cloture is a procedure that allows the Senate to vote to limit debate and end filibuster, a political delaying tactic. To invoke cloture, 3/5 of all senators, 60 senators when all are present, must vote in favor of the motion. During this time, senators can only offer amendments that are relevant to the bill under consideration and were submitted in writing before the cloture vote. And so from my understanding, it just seems like cloture is a way to speed up this process, obviously because they've taken so long to get here and they still haven't passed this bill. I imagine they do need to get this done, so they want to waste as little time as possible. But I just want to highlight this little snippet as I find this is probably the most important part of this entire article. Should the Safe Banking Amendment gain acceptance during the filing process, final terms between the Senate and House bills could be settled in what is known as the conference process. Now keep this in mind. We're talking about the Senate resuming, and they're saying should Safe Banking Amendment gain acceptance during the filing process. Now, we're not anticipating SAFE being added as an amendment into the Senate version of the NDAA because we know Schumer doesn't want to allow SAFE without social equity, which is a whole lot of bullcrap he just keeps spewing out. But at this point, what this article doesn't really highlight right here in the same sentence, but what we know is that SAFE is in the House version of the NDAA. So just what I find interesting is the way they word it here is like, should SAFE be added into the Senate version, final terms between the Senate and House bills could be settled in what is known as the conference process. But we know it's already in the House version, and therefore it still has a shot in the conference process because it is already in the House version. So if it doesn't get added into the Senate version, that's okay because we know it's in the House version. Now, if you didn't know that, just wanted to relay that because that's something I've covered many times in different videos that I've made, which is why SAFE still has a shot in this conference process, because this is where a committee of both Senate and House members meet to reconcile differences between each respective bill. And I want to relay this message that I've said before. Individual politicians that make up the Senate Armed Services Committee and House Armed Services Committee, which do not include Booker or Schumer, have a greater incentive to work in their best interest for their constituents, for their states, and for the people that fund them so that they can get reelected again, versus listening to Schumer and blocking this when ultimately a majority of the members that also make up these committees live in states with some sort of cannabis reform. So they're seeing the direct consequences of SAFE not passing, and that's why they want it to pass, and that is why SAFE still has a shot in the conference process. So thank you for following me through all that. I'll keep reading. Encouragingly, the Safe Banking Act is seeing increasing public displays of support in recent times. Aside from having support of a majority of state attorney generals, banking industry trade groups, and 24 U.S. governors, it has gained key support from 5 senators serving on the Senate Armed Services Committee. And the senators urged the Senate Armed Services Committee to throw their support behind safe banking during the NDAA legislative process. And this is, again, just a letter. Another example, Dear Chairman Reid and Ranking Member Einhoff, Chairman Smith and Ranking Member, just from one of the letters, in anticipation of the Senate passing in fiscal year 2022 National Defense Authorization Act following the Thanksgiving state work period, we as members of the Senate Armed Services Committee write to request that the final conference bill retain the text of the Safe Banking Act of 2021. The House of Representatives has passed the Safe Banking Act 5 times, most recently as an amendment in the NDAA, and I think that's the only part of this entire article that says SAFE is in the NDAA as an amendment, and we ask you to ensure that the text of that amendment remains in the final conference version of the bill to be considered by the House and Senate. And so what investors can expect in a positive or negative outcome. Obviously, the decision on whether the Safe Banking Amendment gets attached or stripped from the NDAA will likely determine directional sector price action for the end of the year. So obviously, if it doesn't go in, share prices might tumble. If it does go in, share prices might skyrocket. So just make sure you plan accordingly based on what you believe to be true and based on your own circumstances. Because in a negative outcome scenario, expect near-term sentiment to sour as the seemingly unending political deadlock grinds on. With prime catalyst loss, we expect tax loss selling to gain traction as investors pair losing positions to offset gains elsewhere in their portfolios. There will also be questions on the trigger and duration of the next legislative catalyst. Uncertainty is never a market ally. Despite attractive valuations relative to growth profiles in the U.S. cannabis sector, focus will be elsewhere to close out 2021. Expect year-to-date lows in advisor shares per U.S. cannabis ETF to be revisited and exceeded. And again, I'm prepared for that, so plan accordingly if you are a long-term cannabis investor as well. While the other side of that, in a positive outcome scenario, the market has ample room to run. And this is what I'm prepared for. Well, I would say I'm prepared for the worst, but I'm prepared to also be surprised by the best case scenario outcome happening. So as stated earlier, MSOs is down 47.92% from its peak through highs despite improving fundamentals. The sector would receive direct economic benefits by way of greater vendor credit access and lower cost of debt. The industry would take a giant leap towards normalization and foster descheduling and federal legalization attempts in 2022 as investor sentiment would be bolstered substantially. So this is why I think it's better to just be in as opposed to trying to time the market. That's just my play. This is not advice to anyone out there, but I hope that was clear enough. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. But again, all these links are available below if you want to grab them. So just on top of that, thank you MJStockTrader for tweeting this. As black is when the U.S. Senate is in session, we are now 2 weeks or 10 Senate days until December 10th, the final day of the 2021 Senate. They must pass the NDAA with or without safe banking in the window or at a special session, and according to MJStockTrader, December 17th would be the latest in his opinion. So as we are right here, the 28th today, they have 2 more weeks in order to get this done. So we will be getting an answer, and I think that's at least an answer is what we're looking for, and there's a lot of reason to believe that it will be a positive answer. But again, it's just very important to plan accordingly for these reasons. Now, just a few things to add on top of that. As more pressure is building from Marijuana Moment, more senators urge cannabis banking reform to be enacted through a defense bill. As U.S. senators representing Colorado are adding their voices to calls for cannabis banking reform to be included in must-pass defense legislation. In a letter sent to Senate committee leadership on Wednesday, sends John Hickenlooper and Michael Bennett noted that the House passed its version of the National Defense Authorization Act with the banking amendment and argued that language should be adopted by negotiators in conference for the final legislation sent to President Joe Biden's desk. And this is what I'm still trying to ensure that everyone can see if they think that SAFE not being added to the Senate means that it's game over. That does not mean that it's game over. We still have the conference process. And so this comes one day after bipartisan members of the Senate Armed Services Committee sent their own letters urging leaders to include SAFE in the final NDAA. And then just to add here, legalization has had a profound impact on our state's economy, supporting over 35,000 jobs and bringing in more than $1 billion in tax revenue thereof. In Denver, cannabis businesses make up less than 1% of all local businesses, but account for 10% of reported business burglaries from 2012 to 2016. Cash-only industries also complicate tracking revenues for purposes of taxation and regulatory compliance, highlighting many common sense reasons why SAFE should pass. So thank you to these senators for writing these letters. And this comes more pressure as bipartisan attorney generals tell Congress to center federal-state cooperation in cannabis legalization plans. This is a bipartisan coalition of state attorneys general sent a letter to congressional leaders arguing that any effort to federally legalize cannabis should be done in a manner that respects the autonomy of states while providing necessary resources to ensure that cannabis is effectively regulated. This comes from Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich, Connecticut Attorney General William Tong, North Dakota Attorney General Wayne Stenahem, and Vermont Attorney General TJ Donovan sent the letter last week in response to a request for feedback on a draft legalization bill that's being finalized by Schumer, Wyden, and Booker. So it's still a draft. They haven't even filed anything, and they wanted feedback, and basically these attorney generals said, hey, it's time to at least let the states make their own decisions and get the federal government out of the way. The top law enforcement officials emphasized the need for cooperative federal-state regulatory partnership that prioritizes public health and safety but does not unduly interfere in established cannabis markets that are being overseen by the states as they should be. So just wanted to share all this because the pressure is building, and obviously we're coming to the tipping point in the next few weeks. But wanted to share this as Mexican senators circulate draft cannabis legalization bill with vote expected within weeks. So at least we've got a date out of Mexico. So I just wanted to share this. A draft bill to legalize and regulate cannabis sales in Mexico is being circulated among senators, and a top lawmaker says the plan is to vote on the proposal before December 15th. Now, obviously, they've set dates before, and then they've bailed on that and never followed through. So we're just going to leave this here for now and hope that in a few weeks I'll have some news out of Mexico. But just to update you on why this industry is not going anywhere, green gold rush, weed has become Arizona's newest billion-dollar industry. And this is pretty exciting to relay because it's taken them less time to hit $1 billion than other markets like Illinois. But at the same time, we know that most markets that reform their laws and create an adult use market are going to see fast growth like this. When Arizona voters approved Prop 207 last November, it was a solid bet the cannabis industry would explode. It's about to be $1 billion industry in its first year, as cannabis sales were more than $970 million through September, according to state revenue figures. I'm just adding this from Matthew Blum, who works for Grow Sciences. When I got into this 25 years ago, I did not think I would be seeing this. Now, there's a lot more in the article if you wanted to grab it and read below, but that's just the juice that I wanted to share because one state has already legalized for adult use, and they've already seen $1 billion in sales. That's a lot of tax revenue that can go to education, infrastructure, and a lot of other good things in the state. While we have this poll from Massachusetts Live, new poll shows majority of residents in Massachusetts believe legalization of cannabis is overall positive for the state. Because guess what? It is. A poll published this week showed that only a fraction of residents in Massachusetts believe legalization of cannabis has negatively impacted the states. And these are likely the people that you don't want to take advice from anyways. While the University of Massachusetts Amherst and WCVB published a poll on Monday in which 61% of respondents said legal adult use cannabis has overall been positive for the state, while 25% said it is neither positive nor negative, and only 13% said it was negative. The poll shows that legalization is reducing the stigma historically associated with cannabis. Good job. Which will only enable the Commission to continue making headway in efforts to ensure full participation in this industry by disproportionately harmed communities, Cannabis Control Commission Chairman Steve J. Hoffman said in a statement. Our work is far from done, and my colleagues and I will continue to be vocal about the solutions that are needed to ensure Massachusetts meets its equity mandate. But at the same time, what it does provide is jobs and tax revenue, a lot of positive things that are good in general for anyone living in Massachusetts. Now on to some tweets. This is from Dougie Kass, who is a hedge fund manager for Seabreeze Capital Partners LP. I wanted to share this because over time, it seems that Dougie Kass and Todd Harrison are friends, and Todd, Brady Cobb, Dougie Kass, these are just some sources that I've watched, and obviously over time, if they remain consistent, there's reason to keep watching them, because if what they says comes to fruition, then, you know, they're trustworthy. But Dougie Kass, basically, I covered him in the past saying that he sees cannabis as an opportunity, and I think from September into now, he's been buying MSOs as much as he possibly can. And he tweeted on Friday, cannabis stocks should outperform now, in my honest opinion, adding in pre-market. So all I can say is thank you for sharing this, Doug, because he's someone that knows more about investing than I do, so we're just gonna have to wait and see if what he's saying is true. But love to see Brady Cobb saying, hey man, sticking to my guns and the predictions that I've made. And then I wanted to share this as an interesting move by Advisor Shares yesterday, jettisoned some individual names from YOLO and replaced it with MSOS. So it seems whoever runs the ETF YOLO has gotten rid of some individual names, and they've bought the MSOS ETF. And so that gives us reason to believe that MSOS might perform much like Dougie said, but this is also from Jungle Java sharing that. And so from my understanding, and I could be wrong, so please let me know in the comments if you understand this better than I do, it looks as if YOLO has sold their individual positions in MSOs in order to buy 2.5 million shares of MSOS, which would give MSOS 2.5 million shares worth of cash so that they can go and buy these MSO positions again themselves. And this would just be in line with what Dougie Kass said, is that he expects MSOS to outperform. Now YOLO is buying MSOS. Why? Maybe because there's reason they could outperform. And then I just wanted to share you this visual again, but from Todd Harrison on Friday, U.S. Cannabis ETF MSOS will try to rebuild on the higher low after the low volume retest potential double bottom. So if we just take a look for the entire year, if we compare the volume that we've been seeing this past month compared to what we saw in February highs, this is what we are waiting out for, and it seems like we're at that tipping point, and all we have to wait for is whether safe is a yes or a no. And I've given you the reasons why it could be a yes and why it could be a no. So again, just plan accordingly. But this is, something worth noting because this volume is record all time, and this is what could send us into new all-time highs if we get the news that we're looking for. So on to MSOs. Verano to open 39th Florida MUV dispensary in Melbourne and 90th nationwide. So just highlighting as Verano is expanding in Florida, as MUV Melbourne is situated off Interstate 95 and West New Haven Avenue's Hospital Corridor, a major thoroughfare with an average daily car count of 32,000 cars according to the Florida Department of Transportation. Despite the pandemic, Melbourne and the surrounding Space Coast experienced record-breaking tourism growth from September 20th to September 2021, with particularly strong July 2021 numbers that showed an increase of 81% year-over-year, according to Associated Press. Can you imagine when Florida becomes an adult-use market? That's going to be amazing. And just to add, I did not get the updated Florida numbers this week. I think because of Thanksgiving, I wasn't able to get them, so just wanted to let you guys know that. On to this one from Cresco, as they closed their acquisition of 3 high-performing Pennsylvania dispensaries. So they previously announced this acquisition and today announced the closing of the previously announced acquisition of Bay LLC, Cure Pennsylvania, which would give Cresco Labs 3 operational dispensaries in Lancaster, Phoenix, and Philadelphia. Cure Penn's dispensary locations are incremental and complementary to Cresco Labs' 5 existing SunnySide dispensaries in Pennsylvania, while it gives them a retail platform that outperforms the average revenues per store in Pennsylvania to be further improved through Cresco Labs' SunnySide retail model. And then just to add, the company expects to transition all stores in Pennsylvania to SunnySide by the end of Q1 2022. So not as quickly as Trulieve was acting, but it is in the works. We've got a few more state stories as Politico reports weed lounges are coming to a city near you. Well, this is just a clickbaity and false headline because no, they're not coming to a city near you unless you live in Las Vegas. But Las Vegas hopes to become a pioneer in creating public consumption spaces. So what I want to share and what this article is getting across is that we do not have any cannabis lounges, which is ironic because we've legalized alcohol and there are bars all over the place, and alcohol is a big cause of crime, death, and all these other things. But regardless, that will soon change as Nevada is the latest state to allow cannabis consumption lounges as the medicinal plant gains mainstream acceptance. As regulators grapple with how to oversee the business, dispensaries are already making plans to open the first state-sanctioned lounges by mid-2022. So they're not coming to a city near you anytime soon. They're only coming to Nevada in mid-2022. But again, this is a good precedent to set because for the same reason alcohol is legal and there are bars, if cannabis is legal in your state, there should be consumption lounges as well. So this will be great to see this actually happen and see more states adopt this. While this is out of Canada, and I wanted to share from MJ Daily, as Canada's first regulated cannabis suppositories target female consumers. This is a perfect example of a unique health product that you probably didn't think cannabis could end up providing a solution for. But I want to use this as an example to try and expand your horizons because in the future, once we deschedule this plant and research its therapeutic benefits, I think we're going to find that compounds like THC, CBD, and CBN can be actually more like looked at like as ingredients that can be added to food, drink, skincare, and different things like that. And so for that reason, I just wanted to share this to try and expand your horizons as it's very interesting. Alberta licensed cannabis producer Paragrass says this new line of cannabis suppositories are the first to hit Canada's regulated cannabis market, and the company hopes the niche products will address market demand from female consumers. The female-founded company recognized a gap in the market for cannabis directed towards female health and wellness, said Rebecca Thompson, Paragrass's quality assurance person and co-president of company, along with sister Olivia Penner. So good job, Rebecca and Olivia, and those involved in making this product, because you're entrepreneurs that found a niche and decided to take action, and now you might actually, see your efforts get rewarded. So just to add, prairie grass suppositories intended for vaginal or rectal administration include 2 varieties: relief pods containing 10 milligrams of THC per unit, or Eve pods containing 40 milligrams of hemp-derived CBD per unit and roughly 1 milligram of THC. I don't know the exact problem that this offers a solution for, but it is another way, much like edibles, that you can get the effects of cannabis without actually having to smoke it. On to this from CNBC as they highlight some good cannabis press. We love to see that. Highlighting Mike Tyson joins the list of celebrities launching a cannabis line, although he's launched his a long time ago, saying, "I use it for life." Mike Tyson told CNBC cannabis makes him a different person and that he's released his Tyson 2.0 cannabis line to help others looking for emotional and physical relief. And the other key point, it's really about the love of the medicine. The co-founder and chief brand officer of Tyson 2.0 said, "I put a great deal of time in agriculture in discovering the right strain." And so these were the key points. You can read a little bit more, but I think Tyson's been an advocate for this industry for a long time. So just love to see that more mainstream media outlets are highlighting the benefits and what the positives Mike Tyson sees in this new lifestyle and new venture that he's into, while Malawi apparently asks former boxer to be a cannabis ambassador. Now this is interesting, sort of coming out of nowhere, but apparently Malawi has asked boxing star Mike Tyson to become the official ambassador for the country's cannabis crop, as Agriculture Minister Lobin Low sent a letter to Tyson inviting him to take up the role and said legislation in Malawi has created new opportunities. So I'm sure it has. Whether Tyson accepts this or not is up to him, but good to see that Malawi is is taking steps forward to normalize cannabis, while CNN High Times reports that apparently CNN's 6th weed documentary features the benefits of medical cannabis for autism. Now, it'd be great if they just called it cannabis, as opposed to using a slang that slows down the normalization and the ending of the stigma. But just wanted to highlight, as this is again positive coming from mainstream media outlets that typically attack cannabis, CNN announced on November 22nd that it would be airing the 6th installment of its cannabis series, Weed 6, Cannabis and Autism, which explores the benefits between medical cannabis and symptoms of patients with autism in its debut of the weekend. So again, just more positive awareness for what the plant can actually do if you look at it as a medicine and for what it is, versus if you look at it for something that it's not, something worth criminalizing. And lastly, this is Cannabis Investing Network's newest podcast, Q3 2021 financial review of the Big Five, featuring Nick Gastovich, aka Canna Investments. So I have not listened to it yet, but I do plan to listen to it later today, as I'm actually moving from my current bachelor into a 1-bedroom down the hall, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. So just want to let you guys know that my Wednesday video, my midweek update, might be a little bit late this coming week. It just depends on when I end up getting the okay to move, whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday, and whether I can get the ball rolling sooner than later. But just wanted to share this because for any investor in the Tier 1 MSOs, this is always a great listen, as Nick and Manish typically dive a little bit deeper than I just do in my video recaps. So it's just always helpful to get as much perspective and understand the companies that you invest in as much as you can, so that you get your own conviction yourself and don't feel swayed by other people's opinions. And so all of these links will be below if you want to listen. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or concerns, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this, please leave a like on it, subscribe below so you don't miss any future videos, and I will catch you this week for another midweek update. Have a great day, everybody.